There may be no greater American than George Washington. Washington became the first United States president in 1789 with his unanimous victory in the first American election. He was also unanimously elected to a second term in 1793, the only president ever to garner 100% of the electoral votes. Washington was also the commander-in-chief of the First Continental Army that fought the British when the country was not yet established. His epic crossing of the Delaware River to recover New York City is still considered one of the greatest military moves in the history of warfare. At the time of the crossing, the British had taken Boston and New York. The Continental Army was on the run and disorganized, but Washington had a plan. He decided to take his troops across the Delaware River in the middle of winter. This was a move that many military minds thought impossible, but not Washington. The Americans were able to take New Jersey and change the course of the war. Another landmark monument for Washington was the winter at Valley Forge. In 1777, Washington led an army of more than 11,000 troops into Valley Forge in Pennsylvania, where the army suffered through a cold winter that claimed the lives of 3,000 men. When the spring arrived, instead of a demoralized, beaten-up group of soldiers, the army emerged battle-ready and able to continue the fight against the English in New York. The army was able to survive the fierce winter because of the training and preparedness of Washington's officers. Washington earned the nickname the Father of his country because of his military intelligence and his concern for the people of the United States. Martin Luther King Jr. is one of the most famous Americans ever. He was a pastor and a humanitarian, but is known mostly for being a civil rights activist. King was the leader of the African American civil rights movement during the 50s and 60s. His use of nonviolent protest to effect social change was based on his Christian beliefs. King was born Michael King, but his father changed his name in honor of the German reformer Martin Luther. King lived during the most diverse era in American history. The white and Southern culture in the United States wanted nothing to do with social change during the 60s. Segregation laws were in place that prohibited black Americans from eating at the same restaurants as whites, or to ride in the same section on public buses with white Americans. King led the famous 1955 Montgomery bus boycott in reaction to Rosa Parks's refusal to surrender her bus seat to a white passenger, as was required by law in Montgomery, Alabama at the time. King started his activism while serving as a Baptist minister for the Dexter Avenue Baptist Church. He believed strongly in the Christian belief that loving thy neighbor as yourself, which was a philosophy he used throughout his civil rights years. He was also a great speaker. His I Have a Dream speech is regarded as one of the most famous oratories in American history. In it, he speaks of how his dream is for white and black Americans to walk together hand in hand as brothers. The speech also declared how it was his dream for all Americans to be judged not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. On October 14, 1964, King was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for his involvement in combating racial inequality in the United States. He was assassinated in April of 1968 in Memphis, Tennessee, at the age of 39. Many American basketball fans would argue that Michael Jordan is by far the greatest player ever to play in the National Basketball Association. The Professional Basketball League has existed since 1947, and there have been many individual players that have excelled in the game. Players such as Bill Russell, Wilt Chamberlain, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and Jerry West have made their mark in the league long before Jordan ever played the game. To be sure, Jordan had a great impact on the game primarily during his playing years with the Chicago Bulls. Jordan led them to 6 championship finals, winning all 6 during the 90s. His legend is firmly cemented into the history of the great city, and many fans feel he has no equal. It is hard to argue against Jordan in light of his success and in all the titles he has achieved. But basketball is a team sport, and winning a championship takes team effort. There have been countless superstars who have played in the league that did not have good teammates and never won a title. Chamberlain falls into that category. Chamberlain did win 2 NBA titles in his career, but no one in the game ever dominated it the way he did. He holds several league records, one of which is it is the only player to score 100 points in a single game. However, when Chamberlain played the game, the NBA was not as big as it was in the 90s. During the 90s, the league enjoyed a much greater popularity among American viewers, and much of this can be attributed to the greatness of Michael Jordan. Jordan brought a style of play that had rarely been seen in the NBA. He garnered many individual awards during his career. He played his last few seasons as a member of the Washington Bullets. Bill Gates is an American inventor, computer programmer, philanthropist, and businessman who was born in Seattle, Washington. He is reportedly worth nearly $80 billion, making him one of the wealthiest people in the country. He founded and was the head of the Microsoft Corporation for years, and is still on the board for the computer software giant. Gates was born to an upper-middle-class family. His father was an attorney. His mother was a banker who worked for the United Way for many years. He is credited for being the father of the modern computer and for almost single-handedly starting the personal computer revolution. He studied at Harvard University, but did not graduate because of his desire to develop new software. As a 13-year-old student at the Lakeside School, which was an exclusive college preparatory school, Gates was introduced to computer programming. That year, he developed a program that allowed users to play tic-tac-toe against the computer. Gates was reportedly fascinated by the computer's ability to reproduce software code. In 1975, Gates approached a company called Micro Instruments and Telemetry Systems, MITS. He convinced the owner that he had written a program that would work with his platform. The owner of the company bought into Gates' innovations, and the two men reached an agreement to develop software for MITS. The Microsoft company was born. Gates went on to develop the Windows operating system with then-partner IBM Corporation. The two companies had differences, though, and their partnership ended quickly. Gates left Microsoft in 2000, but remains on its board of directors. He remained active with the company for several years before stepping down in February of 2014, becoming a technical advisor for the firm. Henry Ford was an American inventor who is credited with inventing the automobile assembly line. German automaker Carl Benz is credited with inventing the first motor vehicle in the late 1880s. But Ford was the man who made it possible for everyday citizens to own one. Before Ford came up with his assembly line process, cars were built one at a time by hand, which was a very costly and inefficient method of production. Ford's assembly line revolutionized the way cars were built, and his methods are still in use today. In 1886, Benz patented his motor wagon, which was a 4-wheel, 2-passenger, self-powered motor coach that was designed to replace the horse and carriage. These vehicles were expertly crafted, but were available only to the wealthiest people of the time. Thanks to Ford, that all changed in 1906. His Ford Motor Company, the first automobile company to use assembly line techniques to build cars, transformed the automobile from an expensive curiosity to a practical tool that could be used to transport people and goods easily and efficiently. His first mass-produced product was the Model T. It remains one of the most sold vehicles ever, and was the first to reach 15 million sales. Ford's impact on the 20th century cannot be overstated. At one time, it was estimated that 9 out of 10 vehicles on American roads were Fords. His cars spurred the American economy like no other single factor. The country's roadways were built in response to a great number of vehicles Ford and subsequent American automakers produced. Additionally, Ford's vehicles created a network of support industries such as parts, repair, and maintenance services. It also caused a revolution in how goods were transported in the country. Henry Ford was a true American icon. Arguably the greatest Major League Baseball player of all time is George Herman Ruth. The Babe, as he was known, is largely responsible for building the game as it exists today. The stadium where he played in New York is commonly called the house that Ruth built. Ruth played baseball for 22 years for the Boston Red Sox and the New York Yankees, where he rewrote the record books. He almost single-handedly invented the home run, which is baseball's most cherished feat. Before Ruth, the home run was a novelty. It was a game of strategy, but Babe changed all that. Ruth was born in a rough section of Baltimore, Maryland in 1895. Much of his childhood has been lost to history. He spent a number of years at St. Mary's Reformatory School after being labeled as incorrigible. His behavior was thought to be beyond rehabilitation. When exactly he got his start in baseball is also a mystery. Some accounts offer that he was placed on St. Mary's baseball team by the coach of the time. One popular story was Ruth being sent to the school because of his natural ability to hit a baseball. The story was that Ruth broke many windows while playing baseball on the streets, and that is why he was sent to the school in the first place. Before the 1920s, baseball was a slow game that included advancing players around the bases by strategically hitting the ball within the park. Ruth came in and was soon hitting balls out of the ballpark to the delight of the fans in attendance. The home run became an integral part of the game. Ruth earned several nicknames because of his power, including Bambino and the Sultan of SWAT. When Ruth was traded by the Red Sox to the Yankees in a very unpopular move, the Yankees won 7 World Series championships in his 12 years. Ruth made headlines for his after-hours antics in New York City as well. His drinking and womanizing are well documented. However, Ruth was a spiritual man who lived out his years as a devout Catholic. During the 1936 Olympic Games in Berlin, Germany, Chancellor Adolf Hitler vowed to use the games to showcase Aryan superiority to the rest of the world. Hitler was convinced that the white Aryan male was part of the superior race, and promised his games would prove this superiority on the Olympic stage. American track and field athlete James Jesse Owens had a different idea. Owens was an excellent athlete at Ohio State University during the early 1930s. During one track meet in 1935, Owens set 3 world records and tied another, in what has been called the greatest 45 minutes ever in sports. Although Owens found great success in his athletic career, he grew up during a time in America when black people were still highly discriminated against. Segregation laws were still in effect in many parts of the country, and Owens felt his prejudice directly. He was not able to stay in the same hotels as his white teammates, nor was he allowed to eat at the same restaurants. Ironically, Owens was treated better during his time at the 36th Olympics in Germany. During the games, Hitler became annoyed that Owens was winning so many gold medals. Owens was proving Hitler's racist claims and rhetoric as untrue. Hitler didn't like it. Owens ended up winning 4 gold medals at these games. Hitler refused to shake his hand. One of the most defining moments in the games is when Owens was befriended by German athletes Luz Long. Owens cherished this friendship with Long, especially because he knew that Long could fall out of favor with Hitler's brutal regime. Many German fans shook Owens' hand, even though Hitler did not. But when Owens returned to the United States, he found not much had changed in there. Kobe Bryant is a professional basketball player who played his entire career with the Los Angeles Lakers. He first joined the team as a 17-year-old teenager in 1996. During the time, Bryant led the Lakers to 5 National Basketball Association titles. The most recent championship was in 2010, when the Lakers beat their arch-rival, the Boston Celtics. The Lakers also won 7 Western Conference titles and 8 Pacific Division titles during Bryant's time. The Lakers are one of the most successful teams in the history of the NBA. They have appeared in 31 championship finals, more than any other teams in the league. The team has won more regular season games than any other franchise. It is clearly one of the premier NBA organizations, which came into existence in 1946. Before Bryant, the Lakers already had some of the most notable superstars the league has ever known. Players such as George McCann, Wilt Chamberlain, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and Magic Johnson. Bryant had been central in establishing and maintaining the legacy of this great team. He is the latest and possible greatest of them all. His individual statistics are astounding. He is the youngest player ever to score 30,000 points. He has been selected to the NBA's All-Star team every year he has played, with the exception of his rookie season. He has won 2 Olympic gold medals in basketball, leading the United States Olympic titles in 2008 in Beijing, and in the London Games of 2012. In 2006, Bryant became the second player in history of the game to score more than 80 points in a single game. Only Chamberlain has scored more. He holds several Laker individual records, including most seasons played, most All-Star selections, most points scored, and most playoff games played. Golf is one of the most popular games in the United States today. There have been many great champions over the years, like Arnold Palmer and Jack Nicklaus, but none have seen success like Tiger Woods. His father was black, his mother was Thai. He was born and lived his early life in Thailand. Woods joined the Pro Golf Tour at the age of 20 in 1996, where he began setting records for winning championships at a young age. He was one of the most promising young stars to hit the tour in years, which led to Woods acquiring several lucrative contracts with Nike and Titleist. Woods became a very young millionaire. In 2001, Woods became the first player in history to hold the title in all 4 major golf tournaments. It seemed there was nothing this young man could not accomplish. Woods grew up in Orange County, California, and studied for 2 years at prestigious Stanford University. Woods began playing golf at an early age, and before long was winning amateur championships regularly. He was the Professional Golfer Association Rookie of the Year in 1996. He has been named PGA Player of the Year and PGA Tour Player of the Year 11 times each. He has also led the tour as the biggest money winner several years. He was married and had 2 children. His life was presumed ideal, but that changed in 2009. Woods was exposed as a womanizer by several women, following an alleged affair with a New York woman. Woods denied any wrongdoing, but eventually confessed to several indiscretions. The controversy kept gaining momentum, and it eventually led to his divorce and the loss of endorsement money from the sponsors. Woods is back on the tour, but has not regained his proficiency as before. One of the finest Hollywood directors in the history of the film industry is Stephen Allen Spielberg. Spielberg has directed some of the most significant and popular films in recent Hollywood history. His list of films reads like a who's who in the movie industry. He has directed such blockbusters as E.T. the Extraterrestrial, Jurassic Park, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Schindler's List, and Saving Private Ryan. Born into a Jewish family on December 18, 1946, in Cincinnati, Ohio, the young Spielberg showed an interest in filmmaking during his teen years. When he was 12 years old, Spielberg created a 9-minute film to earn his photography badge in the Boy Scouts. This was the first film he made. His parents divorced when he was 13, and Spielberg moved with his family to California. After graduating from high school, he applied to the University of Southern California, USC, to learn filmmaking, but did not graduate. Instead, he attended Long Beach State, where he earned his degree in film production and electronic arts, 35 years after his first attending college. His early work was as a television writer, having written scripts for popular shows such as Night Gallery, Marcus Welby, M.D., and Columbo in the 70s. His breakthrough film in Hollywood was 1975's Jaws, which is one of the most popular, highest-grossing blockbusters in the history of the silver screen. He followed the success of Jaws with several films that have earned him a spot in the Hollywood lore. His films have become household names. Spielberg shows no signs of slowing down. He is involved in several film projects as a director and a producer. He has been married twice and has 6 children. He was voted Forbes magazine's most influential celebrity in America in 2014. His personal wealth is estimated to be more than $3 billion.